Hello everybody, this is Malti from Inner Bliss Healing and welcome to another video entitled 10 Questions to Ask Before You Marry Your Future Husband. Now, this is a very interesting topic. Whether you decide to marry your future husband the first time or whether you're going into a second marriage, I'm doing this video from the female perspective because I don't know enough about the other perspective, which is also important. Now, there are a couple of questions you will no doubt be asking yourself before you go into the marriage and the relationship. And you have probably thought about them and weighed very carefully before you make that important decision or even accept his proposal. And it's lovely. Now, your friends are going to probably say something like, what does he do? And how much does he make? And that's also very important. So, how much does he make? What does he do? No doubt you will ask some other important questions, such as what do you think is his long term goal for the relationship and the marriage? Do you see yourselves going down long term, years and years through this happy journey? And even an issue like, when I marry him, will our married life also entail relocating to different parts of the world? Will that be something that is part of this? Also, other questions to ask: how does he feel about children? How does he feel about having a family someday? What is his view or his views about money and finances and being able to handle and manage them? And do they gel with yours? And of course, what kind of physical relationship do I see myself having with this person? And these and more, are wonderfully sensible and grounded questions. But these are not the questions that I would be so bold as to talk about. But I'm going to suggest about 10 other questions that I would like to suggest that you also ask in the process before you tie the knot. Gosh, I don't like that term, before you go into the marriage. And here's the beginning, okay? The first question that I'm suggesting that you ask, either yourself or you find out very discreetly, is the man that I'm going to marry, who's going to be my future husband, what is his mother like as a person? It's very important for you to find out. And having found out what kind of person his mother is, what is the relationship that your future husband has with his mother at the moment? What was it like growing up? You must find some way to discreetly get this information. And how dominating a figure has she been in his life? How much of what she's taught has rubbed off onto him? What has he taken? What has he rejected? What is that going on, the dynamic between him and his mother as an adult? Of course, the second set of questions is, what is his relationship with his father like? What is the father like? First of all, what is the father like? What kind of qualities does the father have? And then what is your future husband's relationship with his father like? How dominating or otherwise is he? Because that's the dynamic that you're going to see when you get married. And then your future in-laws, the husband the family that you're marrying into, overall, what is that family's philosophy of life? Their philosophy to relationships, their philosophy of money, their philosophy of going forward, communication, love, how do they express love? What does that family stand for? And I don't mean what is their status in society. That's important, the material aspects, as we know, it's an important part. But these are inner questions that I also suggest that you ask. As a young boy in his childhood and his early teen years, what did your future husband learn about being able to respect others? And especially, how did he learn to respect women? And how did he learn to communicate with women? This foundation is so important because it will come into play in the marriage. You have to be aware, and I suggest that you have to be aware of what kind of communication, habits, and philosophy and principles he has, being able to communicate with the opposite sex. How does he deal with his emotions? Now, I'm saying this because personally I feel that men have it pretty difficult. Now, I'll qualify that in a minute. We don't give boys an easy time when we are bringing them up. And boys sometimes grow up to be very confused about who they're meant to be. One of the things that may happen is they may not be totally in touch with their emotions. And so, how does your future husband deal with his anger, deal with his emotions, his disappointments, and how does he deal with rejection? Does he have a very, very strong reaction when he is told by someone else, no, I disagree, I'm standing up, please understand? And does he have that ability to shift the balance? Or is it a matter of my way is always right and there's no second way about it? The other question that you could ask, and I suggest that you do, is what is some of his childhood business that's unfinished? Unfinished childhood business. This is the most difficult to find out, but it's well worth your while to find this out. At what point in his early years did he stop receiving, for example, love that he didn't receive and that got thrown out of balance? And where does that come from? Because that is going to come into the marriage very subtly. There is also something quite important for a wife, a future wife, to pay attention to. And that is, does my future husband seem to have any strange, subtle, unhealthy habits or addictions which he thinks is no big deal, but you can't get through to him and he won't discuss and he won't change? For example, if your future husband seems to have, a habit about internet porn, something that's very subtle, but your female instinct tells you this is a red flag. I need for you to understand that is also part of what you will have to deal with. In other words, what you're finding out, it's very discreetly and it's very important. It's to find out, my future husband, it's okay, so I have to think about, what does he do and the pragmatic, practical aspects of the relationship. But what I suggest to you in this video is to also know and to have an idea of what habits, what principles, what belief systems, and what philosophy of life did he inherit from his family of origin, the family that brought him up, basically. What did he inherit from his mother? What did he inherit from his father? Then what you do is you take that information and you ascertain how much of it has rubbed off onto him and that he's carrying from his mother and carrying from his father. You get a sense of some other parts of him that are truly himself. And you'll be able to find out, possibly, if there are any qualities that were forced to him by his parents and what part he was dominated. You will then get a sense of, if any, how much control and domination each parent may have asserted onto him. And if that has happened and that comes through, then you have to be prepared for the fact that this will play out in the marriage. You will have two parents who just want to dominate and want to have a say in everything, and they will look upon you as resisting, especially when you have your own opinion. And you do have a right to your own opinion in the marriage because you are the spouse. Now, I haven't talked about premarital sex. Premarital sex? Should I bring it up in this video? Well, I won't bring it up in this video because I'm not as concerned about premarital sex as I am about premarital cohabitation. I'd love to suggest premarital cohabitation. And I do apologize to everyone watching this. I don't want to be disrespectful to the religious sanctity of marriage. You should not be cohabitating. But for practicality's sake, I think that as a female going into a marriage with the man you love, that it's very important before the marriage to get a real glimpse into the person, inside the person that you're going to marry before you marry him. Because this information and this knowledge is a very precious, valuable thing. You need to see underneath that external facade, that public persona, what he shows to you because, well, that's a very human thing, isn't it? We all do it. You need to see what he is like inside. You need to see him at his worst, as in, what does he do when he's tired and run out of patience? What are the little things? You must be cautious because it's very important at this stage. You need to find out whether you're actually marrying a narcissist. And if you have married a narcissist, it will be very hard to find out in the beginning. And over the time of the relationship, a narcissist's mode of functioning in the relationship is to beat your spirit down. And you will be totally, totally gaslighted and confused. And for the purpose of self-preservation and making sure that you're safe before you step into the marriage, to find out that your future husband is not one. He's not a narcissist. Know that the questions that I'm suggesting, those 10 or so questions, they're ideally good to answer in your heart, in your mind. Because if you go into the marriage without a clear picture of these things that I am suggesting, and I'm only suggesting, not insisting, you may find yourself not only interacting with a husband and also a father, your children, when the children come along, you may find yourself being his mother, dealing with his unfinished childhood business. And you will not be able to tell whether you're being his wife or whether you're being the mother to your children or the mother to him. And it's going to get very exhausting. It's going to drain you. A husband, like the wife, plays several roles. He is a husband to you. He is the male presence in the marriage. He is a father later when the children come along. And if he has unfinished childhood business and you did not know, then you will probably, and I hope not, but probably be shouldering the additional burden of his childhood business. And you need to find out at what point, if there was any maturity that didn't happen. Because to go into a marriage, you need a lot of maturity and you need to be psychologically prepared for all things. You will understand the point that I'm making, that you may be marrying not just him, but you may be marrying into his family. And you must get a sense of whether his family accepts you. Now, if there's some difficulty and the family is having problems embracing you and accepting you, then consider the possibility that it may not be you. It may not be so much a comment on you as a person. It may be a clue, it may be an indication that your future husband's family is at some level very dysfunctional. And they're not able to see the love that is meant to be in a family unit. So one thing that I do ask you to do, and I ask that you think about it, I ask that you consider what I say in this video, is at least you must give yourself the opportunity and the allowance to understand these things before you step into the marriage. Now, the questions that I'm asking you to ask, is this a surefire guarantee for a happy marriage? No, we can't really predict that. I'd like to say, through a more grounded way of understanding and getting a clearer picture of what you are getting into, you will have a better sense of what you may need to deal with, if you don't think about this the way it is. These questions that I'm asking you to ask are a complement to all the other pragmatic questions that you would always ask yourself before you get married. Having a clear picture of what you're getting into, I think it's so valuable, so important for a woman. And I hope to do a video another day from the man's point of view. What are the questions that he needs to ask before he goes into a marriage with his future wife? I hope that what I've shared today will give you some food for thought. Thank you very much for listening, and blessings.